guys, it is April from Getting Hugo with It. Today I wanted to share with you some books that I would recommend for fall. Now some of these really do feel like fall reads. Others, I'm not really sure why I would reach for these kinds of books in the fall, but they just feel like fall to me. So I wanted to share some autumn recommendations with you. So let's get into it. I need to apologize to begin with if you are hearing a little chirp sound every once in a blue moon while you're watching this. Barry needs to, there it is, did you hear it? Barry needs to just change batteries in our smoke detector. It's very tall downstairs. Our ceilings downstairs are really, really high, and I would have no chance in hell of doing it. So Barry's got to do that. Apologize in advance. But I've got quite a few books here that I personally really feel scream fall, at least they do to me, and I wanted to share them with you. Some of them are creepy. Most of them are not, actually. So you don't have to enjoy scary books to enjoy this video. So the first one is a book that came out last year actually, and it's The Rules of Magic by Alice Hoffman. This is for all of those of you who want a bit of a creepy premise but don't want to be creeped out at all. This is perfect. This is about witches, and in particular it's about the Owens family. And we follow them in the 60s, I believe. Now, their descendant, whose name was Maria Owens, was accused of witchery and being a witch for falling in love with the wrong man. Basically, the entire Owens family have been living their lives believing that they should never fall in love, because when you do, something terrible will either happen to you or will happen to that person. So love is not allowed, everything else is. And you meet these children. Now this is a prequel to Practical Magic, which I still haven't read, and I would love to read that. I've been on the hunt for it for a while. I just haven't found a copy yet for myself. But I just really loved The Rules of Magic. I read it last September and it felt autumnal. It really is the perfect autumn read. Next up is a book that isn't particularly autumnal at all, but I read it in the fall and loved it. And that is Life After Life by Kate Atkinson. I've been yammering on and on about this book, as you know, and I just can't stop myself because it is one of the best books that I've read generally. Definitely one of the best books I've read this year. I read this September, and this is about a girl named Ursula, and she lives her life over and over and over again. In some scenarios she lives past a certain age, and in others she dies at that age, and so we follow her over and over again in her life. So at the very beginning we follow her in February 1910. She's born, and in some cases she dies because the doctor doesn't get there in time, and in other cases she lives. And we follow her many lives and the many courses of how her life could have panned out. It is beautiful writing. You care about all of these characters, and there is just something about this book that screams fall to me. I don't know why. I don't have a good enough explanation, but I just love it for fall. Next up is a scary book, a classic scary book, The Exorcist. I finally read The Exorcist this year, and I'm so glad that I did. I really enjoyed it. This follows a Hollywood actress and her daughter named Reagan. Now, Reagan is this picture-perfect child. She's a wonderful girl, until she starts acting very strangely. She is kind of terrorizing the house and terrorizing her mother because Regan is possessed. And we follow her possession story. We follow her mother trying to understand what's going on with Regan. We follow them going to all sorts of doctors to try to find out what's happening and not getting a really good explanation. There are priests that come to help, and you're following multiple people in this, but I have to say the scenes with Regan were so scary. And like, I'd watched the movie before, and I really didn't expect to enjoy the book as much as I did because I had watched the movie, but I really, really loved this book. There are a couple of annoying things in this book. Some of the dialogue is really weird. The mom always says, "What doing?" And it's really annoying. So I need to warn you about that. Go into it knowing that the mom is going to kind of drive you a little bit nuts. But I really, really liked the book. So definitely, this is a good time to pick up The Exorcist. I mean, that's obvious, but I had to point it out. Another book that I think would be a really good book for this time of year is Faux by Ian Reid. This is his latest book, and Ian Reid, he writes really twisted stories. And this is about a couple who live out on the farm. We don't know what year it is, but it seems like this would be happening in the future, because a man comes to their door and he says, "Hey guys, so Junior, we are really interested in you. We're a company that's super interested in sending you away. I think, are they sending him to Mars? I think it's Mars. So we're planning on doing that. Only a few people in the world are being selected. So we're going to be going through like kind of an interview process over the coming months." So this man shows up periodically, and they kind of go through this with him. And it's very strange because they both just agree to it. And to me, what I felt was very autumnal about this book is, well, I definitely think harvest. There's something about the harvest that reminds me of fall, and this takes place on a very remote farm setting. Like, you don't really meet anybody else in this whole book. You have this couple, you got this guy who comes to visit. But taking care of the land is an important part of this book, and I just thought it was wonderful and really twisted. It is unsettling. This isn't got any like jumpy outy points. This isn't scary. It's just incredibly unsettling, and you know there's something weird going on, but you don't know why or what exactly. So definitely Faux would be a great read for fall. Another great read that has a bit of a gothic kind of vibe to it is The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. Really excited about her next book coming out. I think it's December that it's coming out. It looks really good. But this book is really a book about books, most definitely. We follow a young woman who owns a bookshop with her dad. Well, she's working at her father's bookshop. And one day, a woman writes to her and says, "Please come to my home. I would like to tell you the story of my life," essentially. And this woman's name is Vida Winter. Now, Vida Winter is a very famous author. And our main character knows of her because she is very, very famous. And she's also a very elusive and very secretive kind of woman. She has told many journalists in the past, "Oh, I'll tell you the story of my life." And then she tells these twisted, weird stories that all of them are untrue. None of them are true. And she paints them as the truth. And the journalist leaves and realizes, oh my gosh, she just lied the whole time. So our main character goes to this woman's estate, and it's of course like a big mansion that in my mind was very dark. And she meets with Vida, and she's like, I will only do this if you tell me the truth. And so she starts to learn about this woman's life. And I loved it. I really, really enjoyed this book. And it's got so many gothic vibes. That's definitely a fall read. Next up is I'll Be Gone in the Dark. So I'll Be Gone in the Dark was written by Michelle McNamara. This is true crime. And it is about the Golden State Killer who terrorized people in the 70s and 80s. He would attack women, and he would also attack couples. He would rape the women. He murdered several couples. So Michelle McNamara kind of dives into, well, what he did to these women, but she doesn't go like way too into detail. But she does describe things like the fact that he would, you know, go into these people's homes in the middle of the night and shine a bright flashlight in their face so they couldn't see who he was, and would like whisper really, really scary things to them. Obviously, the whole process of like a home invasion and then rape would be terrifying, but he added layers of fear into it. He wouldn't leave right away. You'd be tied up, and he'd be like eating your turkey dinner in your kitchen. He was just a terrorizing, horrible human being. And they finally caught him, but this is a really great book. It is slightly disjointed, so Michelle McNamara died before she finished this book, and so her publishers, and I believe a friend of hers, finished writing it. So it is slightly disjointed. You can definitely tell when Michelle is writing and when it's someone else writing. So there is that, but it is a riveting, really fascinating story, and I was hooked and honestly kind of afraid listening to it. Definitely one to read when you're not alone in the house, I would say. So there is that, I'll Be Gone in the Dark. I would also recommend Never Let Me Go. This is a kind of dystopian sci-fi book about this group of kids. They are going to school. They live at like a boarding school, and it is about their interactions with one another. You kind of go back and forward in time. You see them at school and their like just teenage relationships with each other, and then you fast forward and it seems like all of them are really ill in one way or another, and you see how they correlate. You can't say too much about Never Let Me Go without ruining it, and it is such a fascinating read that I would definitely hesitate to, you know, give you too much information on this, but it's beautifully written, really, really great writing, and that school setting really feels like, you know, back to school fall time. So I would highly recommend that you pick that one up. Now, I couldn't do a fall book recommendation video without mentioning Bird Box, because it's Bird Box. I love Bird Box. This is also dystopian, but this will scare you so much. I still love this book. This is still my #1 horror book of all time. Still, and I've read a lot. Especially since reading this, I was like, oh, I need more horror. Maybe I just love horror. #1, I just love this book. This is about a time in which there is something outside. And when people see this something, they lose their minds. They go on like murderous rampages, and they most definitely kill themselves in all sorts of horrible, twisted ways. And so you meet this woman who is pregnant while this is just starting to happen. in the world. You're watching it happen worldwide, and then it flashes forward, I think a year or two later, where she's living in a house alone with two children. She is trying to get out because they can't stay there anymore. She has trained the children to basically go through the world using mostly their hearing, and she blindfolds her children, she blindfolds herself, and she goes into a boat by the river in the back of this house that she's staying at, and they're on the hunt for a safe haven. Like, riskiest thing in the world, and yet not much of a choice. I love this book. I would love to reread this book, and I probably will one day. I'm just waiting for the right time. But if you haven't read Bird Box yet, what are you doing? This is the time. Like, go, stop watching this, go and read this amazing book, Bird Box. Yes, forever. I will love that book forever. Finally is another horror book, but I didn't really find it all that scary, actually. This might not be horror. It might be more sci-fi, and this is The Girl with All the Gifts. I really enjoyed this book. The premise of this book is we meet a girl, and she has a very strict life. She is kept, when she's sleeping, locked away along with all the other boys and girls at her school. She's kept locked away, and then when it's time for school to start, guards come into her cell and they strap her down, and she goes into her classroom and they all learn. And she has this wonderful teacher that she loves, but it seems like all of the kids in her class also kind of want to kill her. I just love the premise of that. Like, if that won't sell you on a book, I don't know what will. When I heard that story, I was just like, oh my god, I have to read it immediately. So it's like got back to school, and it's also got horror kind of combined, and it's really fantastic. So those are the books that really feel like fall. Every single one of those, there's something about them that just get me and make me feel like fall. Now I'm gonna do a part 2 of my fall book recommendations, but that whole video is going to be about kind of diving into characters and books in which we are learning about characters who you are consistently wondering the whole time whether this is a good character or a bad character. Who are they? What side are they on? And I just love them. So let me know in the comments below if there are any books that just scream fall to you. Just feel like you can only read this in the fall for whatever reason. I would love to know what yours would be. So leave that in the comment below, and I will talk with you soon. Okay, bye guys. Happy reading.